Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Okay, what's up guys? Welcome to another video. So before we get started, I just want to let you know, the next 2 minutes of this video is a little narrative scene that I put together. Now I promise it has a point and you want to sit through it, because in this video we're going to be talking about camera color science. Is color science coming from different manufacturers really a big deal, or is it something that we need to stop stressing? Watch this next part of the video, and when we get on the other end of it, we'll talk about it. Okay, let's go. Jeez. Wait a second. Where's my script? Where is it? Oh my gosh. What could have happened? That was my best idea. Tini! Okay, so thanks for watching that opening scene. Something a little difficult to put together by yourself. I said this before in the past, but I think it's really fun to kind of shoot in this kind of narrative environment, and yet it's really hard to do by yourself, and I just keep doing it. I do it for you guys, I guess. Really, I'm doing it for myself because I think it's good practice. So in order to talk about color science, we're going to use it in a practical scenario like we always do on this channel. We're actually going to film some stuff side by side, see what it looks like, see why it matters. You know, after my last video where I compared the ZCAM F6 to the Arri Amira, a lot of people in the comments were mentioning the different skin tones between each camera. And of course, I didn't use like a color chucker in that video. I just used the standard Rec 709 LUTs and adjusted the ZCAM just a little bit to match the Arri, because why would I not try to match the ZCAM with the Arri, because the Arri is like the gold standard for color science. So I just tried to match it a little bit. I didn't actually go that far with it because I wanted you to see the differences right out of camera. I could have spent a lot more time to make those match even more. And that's what got me thinking about this video. How much does color science really matter? I think that everyone always talks about every different camera having a different color science, and yes, each manufacturer puts a little bit of a different look on their sensor, or they're using the internal software to interpret each color differently on their sensor, so when you do get it in the computer, it's going to look different, and that's just the reality of it. But I feel like maybe we're talking about it too much. I feel like that you can probably get good color out of any camera, given it has a decent spec sheet, 10-bit color, 12-bit color, and so on. I feel like you can probably make any camera match. And that's why I shot that opening scene with 3 different cameras. I actually shot the opening scene with the FUJI X-T3, the ZCAM F6, and an URSA Mini 4.6K. And now if I would have told you that beforehand, do you think you could have spotted those cameras early on? Or did it really not matter at all, because in the end you were just paying attention to the story? And under the same lighting conditions and lenses, it really didn't matter that much. So let's go back and rewatch that opening scene, but I'm going to label each shot with the camera that it was actually shot with, and see if you can start telling the differences between each camera. I'm sure that now that you know the trick, you're probably going to start noticing a difference, but beforehand, did you really care? So in order to get these to match quickly and easily, I recently purchased a color checker. Basically, this is a very accurate color scheme on a card that you can put in front of the camera and shoot it, and then when you get into like something like DaVinci Resolve or your editing program of choice, they actually have these color checkers built into the software. And what you do is you actually take this little mat and you put it over the color checker box here. You line up all the colors with the corresponding color on the color checker, and then you check your white balance and your original gamma, which was really hard for me because ZCAM and FUJI do not actually have a source gamma built into DaVinci, so I had to use a different one to kind of get it to match quicker. And so I ended up using Canon Log 3, which seemed to give me the most pleasing results from those cameras. And kind of helped us standardize the colors across the board. But with the URSA Mini, I was able to actually use an URSA Mini profile. And then I tweaked the cameras just ever so slightly to get them to match a little bit. And honestly, I didn't have to do much work with that color checker. So the color checker here is basically the secret sauce to making any camera look great. We're gonna be using the color checker the rest of the video to help standardize all these cameras. And we're just gonna really look to see if you can still see some differences. So let's actually just set up a kind of side-by-side test between all these cameras using the color checker and with the exact same lighting and just kind of see how they look. Now my framing isn't perfect on all of these. I was using the same lens just to make everything more accurate, but that's gonna give a much different field of view because one of the cameras is full frame, the other camera is Super 35 with a speed booster, then the other camera is just a Super 35. So let's just kind of put these side by side and see what they look like when I've used the color checker to match them the best I can. So the first thing out of the gate is that you're going to see that the Fujifilm, it is a 10-bit codec, but it's a 420 codec. So it doesn't have quite as much colors as the other two cameras have that I'm shooting in ProRes 422 HQ. That's just a more robust codec. So basically I have to add just a little bit more saturation to the Fuji right out of the gate to make it look like the other two. But you can really tell, like in my beard and stuff, on the two higher end cameras, there's a lot more color latitude there. There's a lot more red in my beard, there's a lot more different shades of brown and red and yellow. And that's just due to that higher bitrate color space, and it's really showing here. But if I remove those two shots from the equation, I would say this Fuji footage looks great. And there's nothing to really complain about. Likewise, if I look at any of these shots. Then of course, if you put them back together, you can see that the ZCAM definitely has more red, more magenta in the skin tones and overall across the image, which with a quick little tweak, I can just pull that right out. But it is something to know that this camera does have that. And according to Gerald Undone, if you start playing with the ISOs on this camera, you actually get a green tint at different ISOs versus a magenta tint at some other ISOs. So that's something to think about as well. But if you're using this color checker every time that you shoot, for every shot, you should be able to quickly just match any of your footage in post without a problem. So I just really highly recommend these color checkers, especially if you're new to color and you just want to get to a better baseline quicker when you get into the edit. Definitely try one of these color checkers out. It's going to get you there a lot faster. Now, if I was just to take these three cameras and put their standard Rec 709 LUTs on them, this is what the manufacturer recommends what the camera should look like. Now, obviously, when you do this, they all look wildly different. And then you can really start to tell that not all cameras are the same. Now, when you're talking about color, you're gonna have a difference in latitude and how many colors you have in the image, and that's gonna make a big difference overall. At the end of the day, you're not gonna be able to match them all perfectly, but if you are trying to work in a Rec 709 space, it's not that hard to get things to match. Because I think Rec 709 is about an 8-stop color space. Well, when these cameras are rated at somewhere between 12 and 15 stops a piece. So basically, you just need to keep that in mind when you're shooting and maybe use a LUT or something to be able to expose and alight correctly to where you're making everything fall inside that color space and where it looks nice, and stop stressing how much light or color latitude you have. Now, of course, it's always nice to have extra latitude. It makes things easier in post regardless. It's gonna give you a nice, better fall off of color and light, and it's just gonna potentially look better, but that doesn't mean that you need to stress it so much. And have to buy the most expensive camera on the market. But I just wanted to show off that it's possible to make many cameras match and to stop stressing so much about the different color spaces in each camera, the color signs out of each camera. Maybe just pick up one of those color checkers. They're kind of expensive, you know, they're like 70 bucks for basically a piece of construction paper, but that construction paper is very color accurate. Now they make a bigger version of the color checker that's easier to see on camera. I just happen to get the small one by accident, honestly. And they also make one that's like the small one, but it comes in a little pocket plastic book, because otherwise it's really easy to ruin these things. They're basically just made out of construction paper. And so for $70, you don't want to get that ripped or get any markings on it, because it's not going to work properly if you do that. So if you get the passport version of it, it comes in a little plastic book, and then also has a gray card in there if you want to use that for white balancing and exposure. So something definitely worth looking into, and I kind of feel like everyone should have this in their kit. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to present your portfolio online. As a filmmaker or creator, you're definitely going to need a place to put those projects that you're most proud of, and Squarespace is a great platform to do so. With a huge library of customizable templates, super easy video and photo tools, and the ability to edit on the go, Squarespace is a great fit for you and your work. And of course, all your work will be reformatted for mobile phones, because that's probably where most people will be viewing your website anyway. If you're looking to build your next website, you can click the link in the description to receive 10% off your first purchase of website or domain with Squarespace. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and if you love this video, subscribe to the channel. Until next time, guys, cheers. What? Spencer's drinking beer on camera again? Who would have thought that was gonna happen? You know, I've decided to do YouTube a little bit more full time now, and so I've been shooting a lot more during the day. So it's not always practical to be drinking a beer in the middle of the day, but today I made that exception just to make this video. So, cheers.